Hey guys, 370 here. It's about 9 p.m. on October 17th, 2019, and I'm already getting blown up because I've redone this 1,000 times, like I do with every single commentary video, because I get nervous, and I overthink, and I don't believe in myself when I go off of like a bullet point thing. But today's video, as you can see from the title, is about mental health and my personal struggles with it. And there's no formal organization to this, so I apologize. It's going to be a bit disjointed, but I do want to let you know that the point of this is to add into the ether out there that talking about struggles and being there for one another is a positive thing and should be done more and could help somebody. I was watching a few things on YouTube earlier, and they kind of, triggered some stuff in my head that made me think, hey, we can put these types of things out there and it might help someone. It might affect someone in the way that you've been affected from people's content that they've put out. And if my content could do that to one person and bring make that person think about mental health in a different light, or just trigger a thought of, hey, I can talk about this, or I should put out this positive message or feeling out in the world, then that's good, and I really want that. It's just really hard to be serious and talk about serious things when I'm not used to it. If you guys watched my video where I formally came back after the year and a half I was gone, or whatever, or the year or whatever it was, I talked about how I want to do other other content. And can I just take a drink? Is that unprofessional? I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Today has been a difficult day for me, even though there have been no negative external events to take place. I wasn't robbed, I wasn't hurt, nothing bad has happened to me, but I do struggle with depression, and it is a real thing, and it seems ridiculous to have to keep stating that out in public, but people still don't believe that, so we still have to keep saying it. I went to therapy 2 years ago, and I want to get into why, because people might not think they need therapy, or what benefit could be gotten from therapy. And I want to describe my experience so that you may have not experienced some trauma or anything like that that's blatant, oh hey, you should probably talk to somebody about that. That wasn't my life, and I'm very grateful for that, but there were environmental circumstances that led me to have these issues that I have, and those aren't invalid, so yeah. So just a quick story. I don't know if I've ever talked about this on YouTube. My friends know and stuff, but I don't know. So from middle school through high school, I was taught, homeschooled online basically, If you look up Connections Academy, they do a public school service, and it's at home, and it's really good, and quite frankly, the curriculum was a lot better than a lot of the public schools here in Vegas. But that's, what is that, 7 years? 7 years I was basically locked up in my room all day. And it doesn't seem like a problem, you know? Like, when I talk about it, it doesn't seem like an issue. It's like, okay, like, you didn't have responsibilities other than look at your mother who's, like, kind of sick, you know? And do your school. And it's like, okay. And I never really thought there was anything wrong, particularly. But, you know, one of the biggest things I've learned was that isolation is very real and very, I don't want to say potent. Is that the word I'm trying to say? Isolation's a real thing. If you are isolated from society, family members, friend groups, it has an effect on you, because we're social creatures, and it all plays a part. It's not one thing, you know? It's like being isolated doesn't just immediately give you depression. That's not how it works. But it's the biggest, like, life factor that I can point out, that I can remember. And it's one I do go back to with my therapist a lot of the time. And it's one I still am today. Because I'm unemployed right now, and I've been having issues with school. And I've been locked up in my room for most days. You know, YouTube helped with that a lot, because I got to talk to people. I got to be a part of communities that I wasn't able to have here. We're going off track. School, you know, isolation. So it was, I had been done with my high school, and I had entered into community college, and I went for 3 years, I believe, because I took 2 years to just, like, or not 2 years, I took 1 year to pick what I was going to study, basically, and then I did 2 years for the actual degree. And I got my associate's degree in communications. And through that, I had a part-time work-study job. And I took, full-time amount of classes that I physically attended. And that was a big life change. On the way to that, I noticed it would be so weird, because it would be like one night out of every, like, month, and I'd be doing my thing, and I'd just be on the computer, and I'd be doing something, and I would my brain would get caught on something, like just a random thing, and I would have an anxious, like, chain reaction of events. And my brain would just kind of go really fast, and it would chain react to whatever it was, all the way somehow to, it was either like I didn't have a future or I was going to die. The example I gave my first school counselor before I started seeing, like, a proper therapist. I mean, school counselors are proper therapy, don't get me wrong. They are there to help you. They are there to do a lot of the same kind of things. But, you know, sometimes a school counselor will just want to help with, like, school-related anxiety and things like that, or, you know, how it's affecting your school and stuff. That doesn't mean you shouldn't see one of them, because that's very important. You absolutely should. But I just, this one that I saw didn't have the same kind of it didn't feel like the same urgency to me. I don't know. I was so anxious by that point. Maybe I completely misread that counselor. But I explained to her, I said, I would see like a TV clip of, what was the example I gave? It would be like a nature show, and it would be like a caterpillar. And I would see the caterpillar, and my brain would trigger all these, like, really, really fast. I'm talking in the space of like 5 seconds. How a caterpillar would go through its life, it would eat food, it would live, it would be in a cocoon, it would become a butterfly, it would die. And it would make me think, I'm gonna die. And it was that kind of speedy, anxious thought process that I would have semi-frequently. And on those days that I noticed, I would have anxiety, like, can I call them attacks? I don't know. I'd have periods, like hours of anxiety, and I'd freak myself out, and I'd cry, and I would lay in bed, and I'd go to sleep, and I'd wake up the next day, and I wouldn't remember what happened. I would know that last night was kind of hard, but I wouldn't recall it, I wouldn't think about it, I wouldn't mention it to anybody. Those episodes would happen more and more frequently as I went through community college, as they went from one every 3 months, I'd say, to one every 2 months, one every month, 2 times a month, and then finally, by the time I saw my therapist, it was multiple times a month. And I didn't know why. There was never a payoff to those anxious episodes. I would just contemplate life, and anxiety doesn't have reasoning, So when I saw, because when it was so often, I couldn't ignore it any further, it wasn't like a rarity anymore. It was like pretty frequent. I didn't know why I was crying, and I didn't know why the things I was anxious about, having a job, getting a girlfriend, going out, learning to drive, all kinds of things, and none of which, I had. And then things like, death anxiety, that once you get started on that, it can just roll for a while. Some more water. And I was too anxious to call the counselor. I had to have my dad do it. I also didn't know how. I hadn't worked with insurance or anything. And that was how I started seeing the therapist, and through therapy, I've experienced a lot. Some bad, some good, mostly good. It's a very necessary thing, I would say, to improving my life and making it healthier. Today was just so hard. Today was so hard. And I don't know why. It's just just like any other day. I get up and I try to make sure my parents are all right, and I I try to think about stuff for the channel, and I try to think about stuff for my friends and I play games and stuff like that. And I try to think, I try to force myself out of the house like once a day if I don't do anything, if I don't have somewhere to go. Because getting a job's hard when you're too anxious to go in for an interview. I went in for the work-study interview. Or not the work-study interview. I had the job. And I was at the front desk. And I was answering phones. And I was making appointments. And this got better. It was only the one time. But, because I got a lot better. And I did the job successfully. I only had to stop it because I was graduating. They had me do like a practice call on the phones. It wasn't even like someone else calling. It was a practice, and I was so anxious. I called them, or they called, and I picked up, and I tried to answer their situational thing, whatever it was. I don't remember. It was supposed to be like it's a student, asking for some assistance in terms of that department. Because I worked with the student advisors, and so they had to help a lot of general questions. So they had like a practice situation set up, and I answered the phone, and I stumbled through it, and I couldn't fucking speak correctly. I couldn't get my act together, and I was shaking, and I was fucking crying, and beyond the inability to just answer the fucking phone and try to do the job, it was really fucking embarrassing. Everybody there was very nice and very understanding, but why the fuck can't I answer the phone? Why am I crying and shaking? And so I'm afraid to get another proper job. Because I know once I'm confronted with an unfamiliar situation, I'm gonna likely freak out again. It'll be okay, because you get past that initial feeling. But there's always that, like, really embarrassing, like, first part, because you have to get over that initial, whatever it is, that anxiety, that fear. I don't know, I'm not going to tell you how it works, because I'm barely scratching the surface of how I understand anxiety and depression from 2 years of therapy. So I'm, today was just difficult. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't get out of my fucking room. And it's like some days I can see, like, some days I could see the future, and I could say, yeah, I'm gonna get a job, and I'm gonna do all this stuff. But a lot of days I don't see that. And I'm just struggling to maintain my position in life as is. There were times today where I felt so lonely. My parents were in the house. It's like your head just gets fucked up and distorted, and it doesn't know what the fuck is real. And nobody wants to make this fucking video. Nobody wants to do that, you know? As much of a persona that you can have on a platform like YouTube. You don't want to deviate from that. You know? I don't have like the hugest fan base or anything. I have some really, really fucking cool, loyal ass people that watch my videos. I fucking appreciate you. And you know, it doesn't matter how many people watch. It's like you are trying to make, like, I don't want to be like super pretentious, but you're trying to make like art. You're trying to make content. You do like, you know, I do the wrestling stuff because it's fun and I enjoy it, and I think other people might like to see it. So your first instinct is not, let's bare your soul and like put it out there and like cry and stuff. But it's really, really, really fucking important. And even now, what are we, 21 minutes into this? I still feel silly. I still feel fucking silly talking about it. What problems do you have, you know? I don't have problems. I have a fine life where things are provided for me and I don't go hungry, and I'm well off in some ways, and I'm not well off in some other ways, but it's like whatever that is, whatever that cultural kind of don't talk about it, don't think about it. I still feel silly talking about it. 22 minutes in. The thought of putting this up on my channel doesn't scare me, but kind of embarrasses me. But that's what I want. I want to put this out there. I want to put this out there so that people see this and know that this is real. This is real, people. This is real. You know? People go through this shit, and it's not a fucking work, you know? There's so much I could get into. The type of meds I'm taking, the fucking types of, you know, the people I've seen and stuff I've tried, and, you know, lows I've hit, you know, highs I've experienced. But the point of this was to put it out there, and I don't know if anybody's listened this far. If you have, I really, really appreciate it. Before this, I opened my DMs on Twitter at Eternal370 if you need somebody to talk to. I'll always listen. I don't know what else to say. I just hope someone sees this and feels not alone. I'm in a long-distance relationship, for people that don't know that, and if they'd like to look that up and Google that and see what that means. And it felt so scary to me, and it is, you know, painful at times. And then I found a subreddit, and it was r/long-distance, and it made me feel not alone. And I watch some of these people online, and whether it's depression or whether it's long distance or whatever it is, if this video makes someone feel not alone, that's what I want. So, thank you for watching this. I'm sorry, that was so disorganized. It was 25 minutes of rambling, but I wasn't gonna get it out any other way. I was gonna be too anxious to script it. I was gonna be too anxious to think about it. I was gonna be too anxious to consider editing it. So this way, it's raw. I did it. It's out there. People can see it. That's what matters. So, I welcome any comments, any like or dislike, any DMs to my Twitter. Just reach out. Just reach out. The reason I was able to make this was because I was in a good enough place to observe what was happening in my life and be able to handle it and get to this point. You go from not being aware of your situation to being aware and seeking help to really strengthening that awareness and then learning what you could do with that. And I'm very grateful to say that I know what I could do with that, and it's make a video like this, and it's try to help others in some way. Thank you guys. I will catch you for a later, more upbeat video. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.